After several high-profile incidents involving alleged officer misconduct, the RCMP has come under a lot of fire recently. Now, a CBC News investigation has uncovered other cases you might never have heard about, hundreds of them during a span of 4 years. The CBC's Kurt Petrovich dug up the numbers, and he has the details in hand for us tonight. Kurt?
Wendy, what we found may surprise some people. Cases of assault, sexual assault, impaired driving, even possession of child pornography. But these aren't just any offenders. They are Mounties.
And here you have assaults.
Walter Kostecki, a lawyer and former Mountie himself, is astonished by the breadth of misconduct cases dealt with by the RCMP's internal discipline system.
And I just find it unbelievable that there are all these cases that deal with dishonesty, and that people are still allowed to remain within the RCMP.
There were 335 incidents over 4 years. That included 35 cases of assault, sexual assault, and harassment, 30 officers who were impaired on the job or while driving, 29 who gave false or misleading statements. More than 60 members either resigned or were dismissed for their conduct. 69 received the harshest punishment short of dismissal, the loss of 10 days' pay.
One incident is one too many.
This senior Mountie is familiar with some of the cases.
It's sad when these outcomes are felt.
But he cautions misconduct is not rampant. It accounts for less than 1% of some 19,000 uniformed members, and the guilty shouldn't be judged too harshly.
We do work in an arduous profession, and there has to be some compassion for that.
The head of the RCMP downplays the seriousness of these findings.
99% of the cases, that's probably overstatement, 95% of the cases are just things where people have made mistakes. And police work is very complicated, and people are going to make mistakes.
Surely they are mistakes, but these aren't just your garden variety, oops, I screwed up today at work. These are some serious, serious matters.
And for years, the RCMP kept no central record of them. How do we know? Because when we asked for this list, they had to create one from scratch, a process that took 4 years.
The RCMP hadn't been tracking until I got here, and now we are. We're tracking them all.
The fact that for years they weren't raises questions about how sincere the RCMP was about rooting out rotten apples.
You're not expected to be driving and impaired. You're not expected to be guilty of harassment. You're not expected to mistreat prisoners. These are all things that the RCMP are sworn to uphold and to prevent, not to participate in.
Wendy, there are still some secrets the RCMP is reluctant to share. Even though all the names and dates have been stripped from these files, the Mounties insist that revealing the regions where they took place could jeopardize the privacy of the officers involved.
Thanks so much, Kurt. Kurt Petrovich tonight. And last note on this story, the RCMP has told Kurt it will soon provide details on all misconduct cases since 2008 and that it won't take 4 years.
I wish I could go back. I wish I would have listened to the ones who cared. You need to have no regret. It can start at a young age and happen to you. At first, you will think these people are like your family and have your back. Before you know it, they could be stabbing you in the back. One mistake equals one life. That one mistake could equal your life, the life of a family member, or even someone you don't know. Think about what could happen before you join. Could you really go it alone? Would you really want to harm a life? Your life? Because for me it's too late. I can't take it back. But you decide.
Another unrelated story tonight about the RCMP. The force's watchdog has concluded that despite many high-profile cases, there is not a systemic problem of sexual harassment within the force. There is, however, a problem with bullying and deep flaws in the complaints process. The investigation found 718 harassment complaints were filed over a 6-year span. 90% involved allegations of bullying. 4% concerned sexual harassment. Female officers were much more likely to complain. In some cases, it took as long as 4 years to process those complaints. The RCMP commissioner says he's already making changes to regain public confidence.
I'm very thankful for the report. The report makes some very sensible, reasonable recommendations, and many of which we've actively worked on and have begun to implement already.
There are 11 recommendations, including a more independent complaints process, stricter timelines, and force-wide training on all types of harassment.
An international human rights group says it has heard detailed and disturbing allegations against the RCMP. Human Rights Watch says dozens of Aboriginal women in BC have told them they were abused, even sexually abused, by police officers. The group spent 5 weeks traveling the Highway of Tears between Prince George and Prince Rupert, as well as the stretch of highway between Prince George and Williams Lake. What members heard were detailed descriptions of violence, and tonight they are demanding the government take action. The CBC's Duncan McHugh has the story for us tonight. Duncan.
Peter, those who take us away. That's a literal translation of the word for police in the Carrier Native language. And it's the title of a report released today that suggests Aboriginal women have more than that to fear from police in northern British Columbia.
When it comes to violence against women, Aboriginal groups in British Columbia have long declared police are part of the problem.
Good morning, everybody.
Now an international human rights watchdog says the eyes of the world should be on northern BC and alleged RCMP mistreatment of Aboriginal women.
It is about the levels of fear that I and my colleague encountered in the north, levels that we found comparable to post-conflict situations like post-war Iraq.
2 researchers crisscrossed BC last summer interviewing 50 Aboriginal women. Their report contains disturbing allegations of abuse, many recent. Young girls and women pepper sprayed, shocked with a taser, attacked by a police dog, repeatedly punched by an officer, strip searched by male officers. The most serious, a woman told researchers she was raped by 4 Mounties and threatened with death.
Not only are they not protecting them adequately, they're perpetrating offenses against them, criminal offenses against them.
Still, none of the alleged victims or perpetrators are fully named in the report. Without formal complaints, the RCMP says it can't get to the bottom of it all.
It's not fair to the victims that that information is not investigated. It's not fair to the RCMP to have those allegations hanging out there.
If those concerns were taken seriously, I can guarantee you people would come forward.
This government and police have failed Aboriginal women.
In Ottawa, the opposition called for an independent police investigation.
I wonder if the Prime Minister does not recognize that what is taking place is not a complaint about police behaviour. We have today, apparently, specific allegations of a criminal nature.
If Human Rights Watch, the Liberal Party, or anyone else is aware of serious allegations involving criminal activity, they should give that information to the appropriate police so that they can investigate it. Just get on and do it.
The Mounties will meet with Human Rights Watch on Friday to discuss the report, but this is just one more call on Ottawa to create some type of national strategy, perhaps a national inquiry to address violence against Aboriginal women. Peter?
Duncan McHugh in Vancouver tonight. Thank you, Duncan. The Native Women's Association of Canada says that between 1960 and 2010, nearly 600 Aboriginal women and girls went missing or were murdered in Canada. The majority were under the age of 31. 2/3 of the cases are logged as murders. 1/5 are disappearances. The rest deemed deaths of suspicious or unknown circumstances.
You came to the RCMP wanting to personally contribute to your community, and we failed you. We hurt you. For that, I'm truly sorry. You can now take some comfort in knowing that you have made a difference, because of you, your courage, and your refusal to be silenced, the RCMP will never be the same.
I'm a police officer. I arrest people for doing that. I charge them, I bring them to court. I did not know what to do. And it happened over, and it happened over, and it happened over. And it came to the point where I go to the detachment, I try to go to work, and I couldn't. I would literally vomit into the bushes before I went into the building. Just afraid. I was afraid to make calls. I was afraid to get out of my car because I didn't know if I'd have backup.
The laws, they are there. What we want to see is that they are followed and they're held accountable, because you can have all the rules and policies in the world, but if you don't stick to them and enforce them, they're not worth the paper it's written on.
After considerable soul-searching and discussion with my family, I've decided to ask the BC Liberal Party executive to hold a leadership convention at the earliest possible date to select a new leader of the party. Over the last few weeks, our government has continued to move forward with initiatives that will create jobs, strengthen our economy, and support families in every region of British Columbia. We've made the second largest personal income tax reduction in the province's history. We've launched new initiatives that will tailor our education system so that children get the best possible opportunity to succeed. It is clear to me that those initiatives have been overshadowed. And when public debate becomes focused on one person, as opposed to what's in the best interests of the province of British Columbia, we've lost sight of what is important. When that happens, it's time for a change. This decision is what I believe is in the best interests of British Columbia, our government, our party, and the people who live here. At a time like this, everyone's attention should be focused on helping our economy rebound from the global recession and move forward with an agenda that families can see is in their long-term interests. It's time for a new person to lead the province. I'm asking the party to move as quickly as possible to organize this leadership convention. I intend to assure a smooth and orderly transition. My goal is to return public attention to what is important to British Columbians, their jobs, their families, and how government can best support them. That is what the decision with regard to the HST was all about. And I am hopeful that my announcement today will allow British Columbians to move forward and fully consider the HST and its alternative as they move towards September of 2011. It's not always popular to do what you think in your heart is right and in the long-term interests of our province and the families who live here. But whether it was restoring British Columbia's economic leadership, leading the way in climate action, building a new relationship with First Nations, getting our fiscal house in order, or making our taxation system one of the most competitive in North America, it was always worth the effort. And I am proud of what we've been able to accomplish together with British Columbians. I want to thank all of those who have supported me and my government through one of the most exciting and yet challenging times in our province's history. I want to thank my colleagues and those who stood for election. I want to thank the exceptional workers of British Columbia's public service who continue to lead Canada in so many different ways. And I want to thank the people of British Columbia for the opportunity to serve. And finally, if you'll allow me a personal note, I want to thank all of my family, my sister, my brothers, my nieces and nephews, but most importantly, Nancy and Jeffrey and Nicholas. They have all paid a price for my 26 years of public service. Politics can be a very nasty business. And at times, that nastiness spilled over into their own personal lives. For that, I am sorry. And I want to say thanks to them for their love and their support. I have always felt that public life is incredibly important. It's what defines us as British Columbians. It's what defines us as Canadians. I feel blessed to have had the opportunity to serve in this position longer than most of my predecessors and to have been part of this incredible time in British Columbia's history. It's been quite a run, and a lot more fun than not. I've always been motivated by what is best for this great province and this great country. Thank you. It's been a privilege. Thank you very much.